Hi, this is Jason with Violator Comics Collectibles coming at you with another toy comparison. And this time we're taking a look at the Transformers The Last Knight Voyager class Megatron versus the Transformers Age of Extinction Voyager class Galvatron. So the first thing we're going to do is take a closer look at each figure. Alright, so taking a look at the two Voyager figures, so obviously we have the Last Knight Megatron on the left and the Age of Extinction Galvatron on the right. Now obviously they're two separate figures. You know, this is not a comparison really of two separate figures. It's almost just more like an evolution of what the character went through. Galvatron at some point turned into Megatron. There is no explanation in the movie at all. It's kind of unfortunate. They could have even just said something and that would have been good. They just glossed over it. So there's no explanation of how Galvatron with this KSI morphing technology turned, back into Megatron, and not only that, but can morph, and transform regularly, which I thought was really, really poor, especially with Megatron being my favorite character. I was hoping for something, and they didn't give us anything. But comparing the characters, so obviously, they're about the same height. This guy is definitely a little taller, and the color-wise is obviously, when you look at it right away, is this darker gray on Megatron, which I do like more. It's a lot easier to see the detailing on camera. The detailing doesn't show up as well on this lighter color plastic. But I mean, other than that, I mean, obviously they are two separate figures. Now, because he had the KSI morphing technology, his transformation is like more of a shell former. So, this guy, is much better when it comes to the transformation. And, because of that, he does still have a backpack, but because of that shell forming type stuff, because, this transformer has almost none of the parts of the plane, or I'm sorry, of his truck visible in his body type, so they really couldn't do much other than make it a shell former, which you'll see when I show the back, where he's got like this gigantic winged backpack. But taking a look at the detail in Megatron's face, you can see, I mean, he looks really cool. And not only that, but the light piping in the front on the red, it makes it look cool. It's a nice contrast in the eyes, and then that gold mouth just really, really makes it pop. With this darker plastic, you can definitely see the detail a lot better. When we go over to Galvatron, you can see, just as detailed of a face, but there's no real color at all on there. The light piping's in the back, so it really doesn't show anything. His eyes are super dark because the light piping almost doesn't work on this figure. I do like the neckline for this character, but you can see like the face, there's just so much detail on the molding, and it's just lost because there's no paint apps on there. Now the Takara version did do a better job with the face, but this is this normal Hasbro version. Now going into the armor type and stuff, I mean, like I said, it's just more night and day with these figures. They're not really similar at all. You know, I love this chest. I love the way it looks. It's very like knight armor look. And as we go over to Galvatron, Galvatron is just, It's more of that really cool open center chest, which lit up in the movie. You know, obviously the toy can't do that, but I mean, it looks really cool. Like body type wise, that they are really, really cool. They're definitely different, but I like them both. I love the paint app on with this character with the blue. You know, it does help. I just wish that they would have picked a different color plastic. Maybe, you know, I don't even know, maybe even made it a little bit more sparkly, and it would have helped, because it's a very bland color gray plastic. The biggest similarity is going to be in the feet. You can see how his feet and his toes are on the Megatron, and as we go over to Galvatron, it is very similar-ish. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of a difference, the way that the toes are molded, but I mean, this is probably where you'll see the most similarities in this, in these two figures. Weapons-wise, same thing, totally separate. So he's got, you know, he's got his arm cannon built into his arm, and then he's also got this like sword axe. I don't even know really if it's more of an axe than a sword or what most people consider it. And this, he just has this missile launching arm cannon, which can come off. So I mean, but it's made to look almost like it's molded onto his arm because it transforms out. But I mean, like I said, two separate figures with totally different weapons. You know, because the last night they were going, you know, he's got that more night-looking look to him, just like, you know, most of the characters seem to have kind of gone to, like Optimus, and then he didn't have that. Optimus went to that night-looking style, and then this guy was more of that KSI technology. Now, looking at them in profile, this is where you can kind of see where the figures, you know, separate from each other. Now, obviously, Megatron came out later, so they definitely had more time to engineer him and stuff. But, you know, he does have a backpack, but it's not very substantial. This guy has the most ridiculously, you know, large backpack on the planet. And it's just, like I said, because of that, the way that this character is made, there's really no way to really make him look streamlined, because he's, you know, none of his body parts are actually, you know, in his alt mode. Like, you don't see that stuff. It was just like, it basically in the movie, it just morphed into that. So, I mean, he could have morphed into, you know, anything at that point. I mean, the truck looks nothing like him. Even the coloring of the truck was a little bit different than actual Galvatron. But I mean, like, and that's where this figure suffers the most, is you look at the back. I mean, obviously this guy has a backpack, but it's just much more streamlined because, you know, his alt mode parts seem to be shown more on this figure, but you can see just huge thing that just condenses, and basically Megatron more like goes inside the truck, and this he actually, you know, turned into the plane. So when it comes down to it, the robot modes, Megatron on the left from the last night is a much better figure than Galvatron. Now Megatron, you know, from the paint apps, I like his weapons better. I mean, the molding, I just like it better. It's just much better. I mean, the transformation is much better, so it doesn't have that backpack. Now, Galvatron on the right, I do like this figure. It was, you know, I did love it. It's one of my top, probably 3 from the Age of Extinction toy line. But it's a shell former. You basically fold Megatron into the truck. You don't actually, I'm sorry, Galvatron into the truck. You don't actually transform Galvatron into the truck, and that's unfortunate. But that's based on, you know, what the designs they did in the movie. There's only so much they can do when, you know, the actual robot doesn't really show any of the parts from the truck at all on his body. But, you know, both great figures, but now let's take a look at them in their alt modes. So taking a look at the two alt modes for these figures. Now I love both the alt modes for these figures. I love the new Megatron one. I love it how it's like a current jet meets Cybertronian. I love how they did that. And I absolutely love this truck. I think it's called like a Freightliner Argosy. I don't remember exactly the name of it, but I mean when they showed the production photos of the last night, or the Age of Extinction, and they showed this truck is absolutely stunning. And I love that they did a good job with the toy. Now, as far as obviously comparing these things, it's very difficult because they're two totally separate figures, but I mean, and you know, two totally separate alt modes. But I mean, just to show you, so here we have his jet, which looks absolutely fantastic. It does have a spot to put his sword, so you can detach that. And then here we have the underside, so you can see, you know, you do see parts of the robot, but it's definitely done very, very well when it comes to the transformation. Now taking a look at the Galvatron truck, like I said, this thing is absolutely stunning. This weapon does come off, and then you can see this, the look of this truck is just amazing. Now a little bit weak here in the bed with the transformation of the legs, but I mean as far as the truck's concerned, like if you look at it at an angle or at the front or even a side, this thing is a very, very awesome looking, you know, Voyager class alt mode. Now the problem with this figure, like I explained earlier, is everything is just folded in. Basically his chest is here, his head folds behind his body, and his arms fold up, and this shell basically of this truck is just encompassing that. There's really not that much of a transformation, which is really, really crappy. Probably the biggest problem with this figure, and you know, it's more with the whole movie design, and it's more towards Galvatron, is you can see the color of the truck. It's a totally separate truck color than what Galvatron was in the movie, and that really probably made this have a hard time with any kind of transformation. They could have maybe done a more elaborate transformation when it comes to the robot, but he still have these big chunks on every part of his arm, like his arm, his forearm. They'd have to fold that up somewhere, and he'd still probably have a decent sized backpack. But they decided just to make this all collapse into the backpack, and that's really unfortunate. But there's really no other way to hide that. I mean, like I said, with that, the design of the movie and how it worked with the KSI technology, there's no real, you know, his robot mode does not really encompass his alt mode correctly. It's just, he could have transformed into anything, in all honesty. He could have transformed into a jet or a different type of truck or a car or a big, you know, a tanker truck, and it wouldn't have really mattered because he could have turned into a garbage truck, and it wouldn't have mattered because of the way the technology was. They kind of like morphed like little pixels into the thing. So it's really unfortunate to see that. And that was with all the robots in there. They didn't, you know, really encompass their you know, robot and vehicle modes correctly. Other than the color, and even Galvatron with the way the truck was didn't really do a good job with that. But like I said, this guy is absolutely done great, and the color looks great, and everything is just perfect on this guy. For size comparisons in the alt modes, here we have the Voyager class Megatron on the left, the Voyager class Galvatron in the center, and then the Optimus Prime from the Last Night Voyager as well on the right. And you can see. Now, I mean, as far as a jet, I mean, I've never really compared a jet to a truck, but I feel like they would be, you know, a decent size the way they are to each other. I don't think that's a big deal. The trucks look good together. I mean, both these trucks look great. I mean, maybe I might actually do a more of a comparison of these two, just so you can kind of see the way they would have matched up in the movie, because we didn't get a Voyager Optimus of this newer style truck in the Age of Extinction, so that might be cool to compare that. I've actually had a couple people ask me to do comparisons, so maybe I'll do that so you can kind of compare it more, because they fought on screen and stuff. But you know, overall size, these guys look absolutely fantastic together. And finally, for size comparison, here we have the Voyagers next to a leader class Megatron. So we have the Voyager Megatron from the Last Night on the left, the Galvatron from Age of Extinction in the middle, and the gigantic leader class Megatron from Revenge of the Fallen on the right. So just to show you the different sizes of these figures. So obviously the leader classes are monsters, but the Voyager classes are in scale. Like I said, Megatron is bigger. When you kind of compare these, you know, these two Voyager figures, I really like Megatron the most. You know, he wins the robot mode, he wins the alt mode as well. I love the coloring, I love the detail, I love his alt mode, I love the ship. It's really nice. It's streamlined, it looks great. Now I do like Galvatron, I like the robot, I like his articulation on the robot as well. He has good articulation. You know, they're about the same. I mean, when you compare the articulation of this and this as far as the motion, but you know, other than that bulky backpack on the back, and that's really where this character falters. It's just he's a shell former. It's just, I do love the truck. I love that type of truck that he is in the alt mode. It's just, it doesn't really compare as an overall package to this guy. Like if I were to have to choose, even though they're two separate figures from two separate movies, they're technically supposed to be the evolution of the character. You know, Megatron gets, you know, forced into Galvatron, and then he becomes Megatron somehow again. I still think that this figure is a much better figure overall. But once again, this has been Jason with Violator Comics Collectibles. Any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and I'll see you guys next time.